everybody, my name is Ashley, and I am so glad to be here with you. Today, we are closing out our series called Red Flags, Respect, and Relationships. And in it, we've been talking about navigating sex and relationships in a way that honors God, ourselves, and others. See, we think talking about dating, sex, relationships, and all the stuff that comes with it is too important to just skip over. It's too big of a deal to not start talking about it in a safe space with safe people like the ones you're with right now who care about you and want what's best for you. Of course, knowing what's best for any of us when it comes to dating and relationships isn't easy. Like, what even is dating? How would you all define that term? So take a second right now to answer that question with your small group. See what I mean? We all have different ideas of what the word even means. Now, if you're like me, your idea of what's best for you when it comes to dating and relationships probably came from the stuff you see around you. The couple you see on your favorite TV show, the perfect ending to your favorite rom-com, the book series that leaves you waiting to see if the characters will finally get together, or that picture-perfect influencer couple that you follow online. All of that stuff gives us these ideas of dating and relationships that seem too good to be true. And here's the thing. They are. Dating and relationships aren't always picture perfect. They can be awkward, frustrating, disappointing, confusing, messy, and weird. Sometimes they're filled with a lot more red flags than respect. Even though we may all know that this is true, I think so many of us still probably struggle to let go of that picture-perfect idea of what dating can actually be. So let's see what you think the perfect relationship should be all about. Now, with your group, brainstorm what you think the perfect relationship should look like. List everything that you come up with and be ready to share your ideas. I'm sure many of your answers have to do with what you hope the other person will bring to the table. When we think about dating, we focus a lot on who we want the other person we're dating to be, what we hope they'll do, how we want them to treat us, and even what we hope they'll look like. And while all of that stuff is definitely important to consider, it leaves out a pretty big piece of the relationship puzzle. You. Since it takes two people to make a relationship work, shouldn't we be focusing on both people? Shouldn't we be asking ourselves what we can bring to the table too? If we all want healthy relationships, and I think we do, then what can we do to make sure we're taking steps to get there? Even if you're not dating now or even interested in it, trust me, this matters for your everyday relationships, like the ones with friends, siblings, teammates, and more. So how can we make sure that we're focusing on the right things when it comes to dating? Now, a couple thousand years ago, a guy named Paul wrote a letter to the Christians in a town called Corinth. Paul's life had been completely changed by Jesus, so much so that he started sharing the message of Jesus with people all over the world, including Corinth. After he spent some time with them, Paul wrote the people there a message to remind them of what God says is best for them. Now, in that first letter to the Corinthians, Paul included a couple thoughts that I think can be specifically helpful when it comes to dating and relationships. So check it out. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. Here, Paul listed what God says love looks like: patient, kind, faithful, hopeful, and lasting. It's not rude or prideful. It doesn't keep score, and it doesn't give up. When we think about that kind of love, isn't it exactly what we want in any relationship? But if we're honest, don't we usually think about the type of love Paul mentioned as being about the other person in our relationships? We want the other person to be patient. We want them to be kind. We hope that they're faithful. We hope that they don't brag or act prideful. We want them to not give up. To be clear, that's not bad at all. God wants us to look for those type of characteristics in any relationship, from friendships all the way to dating relationships. But we shouldn't leave it there. Instead of focusing on finding all this great stuff in other people, we need to stop and look at ourselves. we need to consider if we're that kind of person as well. Am I patient? Am I kind? Am I faithful? Do I brag? Do I get jealous? Do I always want to get my own way? Okay, so when it comes to relationships, what we bring to the table matters too. Being honest about that is part of moving toward becoming the person that God made us to be. A person who is patient, kind, faithful, hopeful, and all the other things that Paul mentioned. Here's what I want you to remember today. When it comes to dating, God cares about us demonstrating love before looking for love. Start there. Instead of putting all of your effort and energy into finding the person that you want to be with, focus on becoming the person you want to be first. One step toward developing the qualities of love that God wants us to demonstrate is to practice sexual integrity. Now that means choosing to respond to the sexual things that we feel or think or desire in a way that respects ourselves, others, and God. Dating may be a very real way for you to learn to live out the love that Paul wrote about with integrity. But you don't have to wait until you start dating to practice sexual integrity or to start letting God's Spirit develop really great qualities in you. In fact, we need to be putting these things into practice before we even think about dating someone. Why? So you can demonstrate love before you look for love. Whether you're dating or not, you have the opportunity every day to live out the characteristics of love that Paul wrote about in this letter to the Corinthians. God cares about us demonstrating love before looking for love. And the reality is that God has given us all the power that we need to become the type of people that God wants us to be. So instead of using dating as a way to look for the right person or the picture-perfect relationship, let's focus on developing the characteristics of love that Paul listed for us. Let's focus on demonstrating love before looking for love. And here's how. First, red flags. Identify them. It's okay to admit your red flags. In fact, it can actually be freeing. Relationships aren't perfect, and neither are you. So a great place to start in becoming the person that you hope to be is by being honest about where you need help. Use Paul's list to help you identify characteristics that you lack. Then, respect. Focus on one quality. Start the process of becoming the person God wants you to be by picking one of the characteristics on Paul's list to develop in yourself. Maybe you could use a little bit more patience, or you'd like to be quicker to forgive. Maybe you want to cut back on the rude comments that you make, or you'd like to be more thoughtful. What if you started by focusing on just one characteristic in yourself that you want to grow? It's a great way to not only respect yourself, but also respect the person God wants you to be. And lastly, relationships. Practice what you pick. Who you're becoming affects who you are in your relationships. So focus your energy on becoming more of who you want to be by practicing the characteristic that you pick to work on. If you have a tendency to be rude to those you love, practice giving compliments to them on purpose instead. If you tend to be impatient, practice being patient in your responses to people this week. Instead of holding a grudge, practice bringing up and talking through something that hurts your feelings. None of this is easy, is it? In fact, it would probably be a lot easier if those simple, picture-perfect relationships that we see on TV actually did exist. Unfortunately, developing real relationships with real love takes a lot of real work. And if we're going to find the kinds of relationships that we hope for one day, we have to remember that God cares about us demonstrating love before looking for love. Just imagine if dating could be a really positive experience for both you and the person that you're with. Even if you're not dating yet, what if developing the kind of love that God wants you to demonstrate could set you up for a better dating life if and when that time comes? Imagine if choosing to focus on becoming that person meant that you'd have better relationships all around. God cares about us demonstrating love before looking for love. So keep that in mind as you navigate your friendships and dating relationships now and in the future. This has been a really great conversation, and honestly, I don't want it to stop here. So I hope that you'll continue to talk about the red flags that you want to avoid, the respect that you hope to give and receive, and the relationships that you want to be in with people who care about you and support you, like your small group. If nothing else, I hope that you'll encourage each other to build characteristics that help you grow into the people God created you to be.